Welcome back to Around Town with Linda. My name is Linda Malash, and today I'm talking with Rita Dunlop. She is the president of the Chelsea Area Garden Club, and in honor of Mother's Day, I'm talking to my mom. So, Mom, let's start talking about the garden club. Now, how did you decide when you moved to Chelsea that this was a club that you wanted to get involved in?
Well, we had lived here, a couple years anyhow, and I got a phone call. I think it was from Kathy Kirsten, and she said that the garden club was going to do just a very informal garden walk in my neighborhood and asked if I would mind if they came over. I was delighted. I was interested in it, but hadn't done anything yet. Well, as it was, the day of the walk, pouring rain and cold, and I thought, nobody's going to come. But I was surprised. These are hardy women. A big group of them came, and we walked around. And in the process, they asked if I would be interested in coming to one of their meetings. Well, at the time, I couldn't tell you who was there because everyone was so bundled up. But when I got to the meeting, Wanda Stumpo and Becky Schultz came up to me and said, asked me if I would like to sit with them. Okay. And ever since then, it's just been something I have enjoyed immensely.
Now, you've been in gardening itself for a long time. Like I remember as a kid, you had beautiful flowers at our house where we grew up. I wonder, how did you initially, was your mom into gardening or no?
No, and neither was my dad, really. It's hard to say. It seems like I was interested for a long time. Actually, it might have been my uncle, Salvu.
Oh.
Salvu, well, he wasn't really my uncle. He was my mother's uncle. Oh. Salvu and Polina lived across the street from us when we lived on 6th Street. And, our neighborhood we were in a kind of a poor area. And there weren't any flower gardens around, just some vegetable gardens. But Salvu had, in his backyard, roses. Roses and a fence just full of morning glories. And that really impressed me. I just loved it. And then later, when I was in school, I remember they offered us packet seeds of flowers, and if I remember correctly, they were like 3 cents each. Oh. Well, I would sit down and plan this big garden and the different seed packets I was going to buy. Never did anything about it. I didn't have an area, to put a garden, really, as we were growing up.
But you had no backyard where you could put it in?
No, when I was real little, the house that we lived in up until age 10 was... I don't even think we had grass. I mean, it was that kind of a neighborhood. It was clean but run down, that idea. Okay. And then when we moved after I was 10, we lived in a house that had a very small backyard that was totally taken over by this gorgeous apple tree. Oh, okay. And so, no, there never was an area for gardening. So when I had a chance to do my own garden, I took advantage of it.
Do you remember that first garden you ever made? Do you remember?
Let's see. When we were on Graydale, you were real little then, we had a lot of pear trees. Remember that? And under the pear trees, I grew a lot of ground covers, which really made the yard look real pretty. Right. But when we moved to Edinburgh, I mean, everywhere there were flowers. Yeah. Really was beautiful. I loved it then.
Well, you have a special gift with flowers, that's for sure. It seems like you definitely have a green thumb. Whatever you touch seems to be beautiful, especially when it comes to flowers.
Thank you. I don't know about a green thumb. I have dirty fingernails, but it's something I've enjoyed for a long, long time.
So, what do you guys do in the garden club? Do you sit around and discuss flowers and stuff, or what are some of the things that the garden club is responsible for, and what kind of things do you actually do?
Well, our meetings are once a month, first Monday. It's always at the United Methodist Church, and we always have a speaker or a project, of course, related to gardening. We also do a lot of eating.
Okay.
Garden. I mean, the emphasis is somewhat on food too, because gardeners are excellent cooks for the most part.
Okay.
Anything that any of the gardeners have brought have been delicious, but it's really the gardening that we're about. The garden club mainly focuses on civic beautification. The post office is our project, the different gardens around the post office. The circular garden there, we put 2 plantings in each year. Very soon it's going to be just full of tulips. They're all in buds right now. And then later on in the summer we'll change it and have different summer flowers.
Is the garden club also responsible for the flowers in front of our new library?
Yes, the containers that are placed around the library, they are presently full of beautiful pansies, and this summer we will take the pansies out and fill it with summer flowers. And because this is Chelsea's 175th year celebration, we are going to have those flowers be red, white, and blue.
Oh. Hey, I heard that the garden club is also marching in the parade, almost like in a synchronized way, like the businessmen with the briefcases, but you guys will have like garden implements. Is that true?
Oh, yes, and we're going to have a big presence in the parade, a big float that your dad and I are working on, as well as several other people.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
When is it? That's like the end of June?
Yes, it is. It's the last Saturday in June. Oh, I don't remember offhand the date, but it is the last Saturday.
Now, I remember when you told me that you were actually going to be president of the garden club, that really surprised me, that usually you're a behind-the-scenes person, and for you to step up to leadership, I thought, wow, that was very brave of you, Mom. So what is it that made you say, okay, I'll do it?
It was brave of me.
Yes.
I mean, it was way outside my comfort zone. When it was Janet Wambach that called and asked me, and really surprised me. I mean, I immediately said, oh, I can't do that. No way. And then Judy Smith called and asked again, and I said, Judy, I know I can't do that. I'll think about it, but I already knew I wasn't going to. Well, your dad said, Rita, I know you could do that, but he always says I can do things. So I didn't go so much by that. And actually, it was a discussion I had with you and Chris.
Oh.
Chris said to me, Rita, I can see you as president. And it was like, then I started thinking, well, maybe I can see myself as president. And it's been going very, very well. I'm in my 2nd year right now, and I'm enjoying it.
What's been the most challenging part of being president so far?
Well, getting up and talking in front of a group. I know that's a fear of lots and lots of people. And you have urged me to take your Dale Carnegie class, which I've, just not done. But it got a little bit easier and easier, and they are so supportive. I mean, I'm always having people come up and say, Rita, you said you were going to be nervous, and you weren't at all. So I do. I get a lot of support. They're just a wonderful group of women.
That's cool. You guys have a big event coming up, your big garden sale, which has grown, I think, huge in terms of the amount of revenue it brings in and also just the number of plants that you have for sale. When is that coming up, and can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, that's our biggest fundraiser. We do a lot around the city. We do scholarships. We need to raise money other than the $15 that we charge for our dues. Yes, yes. May the 16th. Okay. It's a Saturday. It starts at 8:30 and it runs until noon. Okay. Get there early though. There's going to be so many plants. We're thinking right around 3,000 plants. Wow. And these are plants that have been grown locally, which is important. We started last summer, because this is something we work on all year round. Okay. Last summer we went to one of the members' homes, Charlene Harris's, and a group went and potted up, I think, like 500 plants from there. And then a couple of the members kept them over the winter near either in or outside their barns. And then, last fall, Val Throp asked us if we would like to come to her home. She's on many acres. She's not a member of the club, but she's a good friend of Nancy Cooper's, who is. And a group of us went out there and dug up and potted about another 300 plants.
Wow.
All different kinds. And then more recently, we've gone to Nancy Cooper's home. You've been there, so you know how beautiful it is. We potted up at least 500 plants there. We potted up a whole lot of ornamental grasses. We'll have more of those than we've ever had before.
Okay.
But also she had, anything you can think of. Hostas, all kinds of perennials. Right now at her house, she's got about 500 potted plants sitting around waiting for this plant sale.
Okay.
Now it's going to be Saturday, May the 16th.
Okay.
It's at the Park Street parking lot next to the library and the church.
Okay.
Across the street from the farmer's market.
Yep.
All kinds of plants. Daylilies, we'll have herbs, some annuals. This has been Jayetta Edwards' baby.
Mm-hmm.
She has done this, I think, since the club started back in 1997.
Wow.
Although actually this is our 10th annual
Wow.
plant sale.
Okay.
And Jayetta has always done just a wonderful job. This year, Nancy Cooper is co-chairing with her. It's going to be a great event.
Excellent. All right. Now, if somebody wanted to get involved with the garden club, is there like a website that they can go to find out more about it?
Yes, in fact, we just started our website.
Okay.
This is a project of Trin Pfeiffer's,
Mm-hmm.
and she's just done just a wonderful job, just wonderful, because it's just started. I've just had a peek at it, and it looks like it's going to be very, very good.
Oh, cool. Now, let's talk about your heritage. You are 100% Maltese. Can you tell us a little bit about where is Malta and about how has that impacted your life being Maltese?
I am a first-generation American. Both of my parents were born on Malta, or in Malta. Malta consists of 3 islands in the Mediterranean Sea. It's about 60 miles off the tip of Sicily. Mom and Dad never met when they were on the island of Malta, but they both came to America in 1920. My dad came alone, of course, looking for work, as most people that came from Malta. But my mother was only 12 at that time. Her father had come over about 7 years prior to that. And actually, he didn't come to America even. He came to Canada. He settled in Toronto and was trying to save enough money to bring his family, 4 children and his wife, here. But then at one point, Henry Ford started the Ford Motor Company, and so there was a lot of work available, and Nunu came to Detroit, and as soon as he was able to save enough money, he sent it, and my grandmother and my mother, who's the oldest of the 4 children, her 2 sisters and brother came over. It took 2 months to sail from Malta. When they arrived on Ellis Island, they couldn't get in touch with my grandfather for some reason. There was a mix-up in communication. And they had to stay on Ellis Island for, I think it was about a week. And during that week, there were, of course, a lot of people there. At night, they would separate the men from the women. And my Uncle Joe, being the only male in that group, and he was only maybe 10 at the time, didn't want to go off by himself, and my grandmother didn't want him to either. So they dressed him like a girl so that he could stay with him. It didn't affect Joe, though.
No.
But they finally got together, and they moved into a house, which actually was next door to the house where I grew up.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, and at one point, my dad moved upstairs because my grandparents took in roomers
Okay.
to earn extra money.
Mhm.
And they had, 2, 3, always Maltese gentlemen
Okay.
that lived upstairs. And that was how my dad met my mother, and actually that's how my Aunt Mary met her husband, John, too.
Oh, okay.
And they were married in 1928, I believe it was.
Okay.
They quickly had, how about 10 children?
Yeah. Yeah.
I am the 8th one.
Okay.
And as I said, we lived, it wasn't too far from downtown.
Mhm.
It's where the, where the Motor City Casino is
Mhm.
now, just a stone's throw from there.
Okay.
And it was an area called Little Malta because so many Maltese people lived there.
Okay.
I had cousins all over the place. It was wonderful. It was a great place to grow up. We just,
What did you do? Like, what kind of stuff did you do?
well, let's see. I can remember playing with my cousins in the alley. I mean, we would play different ball games there. Kick the can, I think it was called. We did a lot of walking. We walked everywhere. For a lot of years, my family didn't even have a car. Yeah, actually, I was the first one in my family to even be born in a hospital. I'm guessing we were poor,
Mm-hmm.
but we didn't know it. And everyone else around was poor, too. It was just a great childhood. It really was.
I always wondered, how did you find places for everybody to sleep? Did you put like 4 kids in one bed together in one bed? I mean, where did everybody sleep?
Well, let's see. It was kind of a strange house. I mean, it wasn't like you walked in and there was a living room. You walked in, there was a big room with a big table.
Okay.
Actually, in the winter, my mother would sometimes hang the clothes there in that room. I slept in a room I shared with 3 sisters.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. There was another little room off where 2 other people slept. It was just that kind of a thing. And it was all on the first floor because we rented out the upstairs floor.
Wow. Okay. What did you guys eat? I mean, did you ever have time when you didn't have enough money for food, or no?
Never, never. And in my family, there are 5 boys, and they were all big eaters. My mother had probably 7, 8 recipes
Okay.
that we kept, having over and over, and 5 of those were soup. We
Okay.
ate a lot of soup growing up. Our meals were simple, but no, I don't remember ever a time when we didn't have food.
Okay.
The highlight of the week was Sunday dinner. It was always followed by having a glass of orange pop. And this was like just
Huge.
wonderful for us. This was dessert for the whole week.
Wow. All right. You said before that you guys never celebrated birthdays when you were little.
No, we didn't. I'm thinking that just wasn't part of the Maltese tradition. We acknowledged our patron saint's day.
Okay.
You asked what we did growing up. We spent a heck of a lot of time in church.
Okay.
My family was very, very religious, and the whole Maltese community was centered around St. Paul's Maltese Church.
Okay.
We went to church not only on Sunday morning, we also went on Saturday morning. I mean, sometimes we were going to a funeral of someone we didn't even know, or a wedding, but we did that. And then Tuesday nights was always Mother Perpetual Help devotion.
Hey, what is that?
You'd go to church and say lots of prayers and novenas. There would be a sermon. Oh, the first Friday, an hour's devotion at church. We spent a lot of time. I guess it kept us on the straight and narrow.
I remember you telling a story about Christmas, and one time for Christmas you got a plastic watch. Do you remember that story?
Oh, I do. I do. Yes. It was. Oh, yeah. It was. Our Christmas was more centered around, here we go again, midnight mass. Okay. Yes. And we opened our presents after midnight mass. Well, Sam, my closest brother, Sam and I snuck down, and there were a few presents, under the tree, and I saw the one that was for me, and I could feel it, and I knew that it was a watch. In fact, honestly, I swear I could hear that watch ticking. It wasn't even a real one. But, kids' imagination. But that was exciting. There were a couple of years where we got help through the Goodfellows. And there might have been toys. I don't remember if there were. You would think I would remember that. I almost don't think there were toys. But there was, in each child's packet, there were underclothes, a coupon for a pair of shoes, and a little box of hard Christmas candies. And that was so special to me. I wish I had one of those boxes now. I wish I'd kept one of them. Oh, and also books. They gave us books, and we didn't have a lot of books at home. The two books that I remember getting those 2 years were Cherry Ames, Student Nurse, and Cherry Ames, Army Nurse. Okay. And I don't know how many times I read those books, but I loved them.
What were you like as a kid, being one of the youngest of 10? Were you quiet? Were you gregarious? What were you like as a young girl?
I'm thinking I was more on the quiet side. Little things that I remember. I had eye problems, and my mother used to have to take me to Children's Hospital occasionally, to their clinic there, and I can remember we would take not a bus, it was a streetcar, and it would be just my mother and me, and I loved that. Sure. When you're one of 10 kids, you don't have that one-on-one very often, and that was so special to me. I can remember that. My sister Mary often took me to different places with her girlfriend, and I can remember her taking me to an ice skating rink once, and I saw someone doing, how they twirl real fast. Right. How impressed I was by that. She took me to the library, and I loved going to the library. I still enjoy books a lot.
You told me about a time that you got into trouble once. Was that you with the trouble with Grandpa and the stove, or was that another aunt?
Oh, no, that was me.
Okay.
Yeah. At Christmas time, my dad made fig cookies, and they had to be deep fried. And we had a deep fryer built right into the stove. And I was helping him. And I was there in the kitchen by myself, and when I was done, I thought I had turned it off. I turned it on to high. And it caught fire. And my dad, in his excitement, instead of covering it, which is the proper thing to do, he picked it up and carried it outside. Oh my God. And yelling, the whole time, naturally. And one of my sisters had a new boyfriend over, I remember, and it was just a lot of confusion. But I ran upstairs crying and crying. And my dad was, you remember Grandpa Val, a little bit on the harsh side. Anyhow, I remember him coming up and comforting me. And it was so not like him to do that. Again, another big memory for me.
Right. Are you still close with your siblings now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there are 8 of us now. 2 of my brothers have passed away. Um, we just, when was it? Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, a group of us, let's see, it was my sister and her husband, 2 other sisters and 2 other brothers, and your dad and I made a trip to Malta, which was such a wonderful thing to do. We just had a ball. We visited with people that, and cousins of mine, that the one cousin had the same name as my dad and looked like my dad. Yeah, Spiruvella. They were just the sweetest people. We visited where my dad had grown up on Chalende Bay, and I took some pictures of Chalende Bay, and when we got home, I looked at a picture that my dad had when he lived there, and it was so interesting because the background, the lay of the land, I guess is what I would say, was exactly the same in the picture. It was really interesting.
Cool.
It was, I'd love to go back to Malta. We visited a lot of churches there. Would you believe that Malta is like, I don't know, I think it's 80 square miles. And in this area, there were 365 churches. But that's Malta.
That's Malta. All right. Is there anything about growing up, Mom, like that when you grew up, you remembered that or were impacted by it so that you said, this is when I raise my family, I want to do this the same or maybe do this differently? So how did your growing up experience impact the way that you raised your family?
Well, I told you about being with my mom on the streetcar and how much I enjoyed that. When you were little, I would try to have one-on-one time with you, to do something with you one-on-one. I think we tried also to make your birthdays very special.
Yeah. Why don't you tell me about your family? So actually today, 53 years ago today, you met Dad, which is pretty cool. So why don't you start by telling me about your husband and then about your kids?
Okay. Well, I find Mort to be a very interesting person. He's very creative. We're alike in a lot of ways. I've never been one to think that opposites attract, but there are some aspects of our personality that are very different too. I think in any long-standing marriage, in any long relationship, it's those differences that really bring you together. You need to respect each other's differences, and I think that we have. We must be doing pretty well because we're going on 50 years.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary this year.
That's pretty cool. Right at the depot here in Chelsea.
Yes, you 4 girls are just wonderful that you're going to be putting on a big party for us. And, of course, you have lots of aunts and uncles and cousins, so it's going to be a really big party. Yes.
So you had 4 girls in rapid succession back there in the 60s. So tell me about your 4 girls and what it was like raising 4 little girls very, very close in age.
Yes, well, Laura is our firstborn. Laura and John now live in Canton with their 3 daughters. Then there was Linda, you were second, and you and Chris live in a beautiful old house and right there in downtown Chelsea with your 3 children. And then my 3rd daughter is Debbie. Debbie and Todd live in Chelsea also with their 3 children. And Jennifer is the 4th. Jennifer and Bill live in Livonia. They have Isabel from Jennifer's first marriage, and Isabel shares time between Jennifer's house and her father's house. And they have little Dennis, who's 4 years old. He's our youngest grandchild.
How many grandkids is that, Mom?
I have 11 grandchildren, and each one of them is just so special. They really are. They're each a different personality. I just could not be more proud of my children, my grandchildren, and my children. Yes, yes.
So what was that like raising four girls way back then? What were some of the challenges that you faced then?
We were always busy. It just seemed like there was always something going on. It seems that my memories of it are trying to keep you guys clean, trying to keep you dressed and all. You know, I never thought, oh, aren't they a cute little group? I really didn't. But I had other people tell me that. It was great raising four girls. I almost think it's easier to raise four of one sex. I don't know. I don't have any sons. I've got some great sons-in-law now, but it just seemed like I think that's easier. You girls were best friends. You know, the four of you played together quite a bit. It was a nice neighborhood because there were other kids your age right next door and right close by. You played in our woods right behind our house. You would spend hours there. You know, that was just what you did. You had like a little house set up back there.
It was an awesome house too, Mom. It was such till the boys came and wrecked it, and then we had to rebuild.
Oh, yeah. Oh, what those boys, honestly.
I know. So we were talking earlier about what are some challenges that you faced in your life. So what do you consider one of the greatest challenges that you've faced in your life?
Well, being married to someone or your loved one having chronic illnesses is a challenge for both of you. It's an ongoing challenge. I think perhaps it even brings us closer together, really. I've not had a lot of big challenges. I have been just the luckiest person. I really have. That and being president of the garden club, quite honestly. I'm sure there were other challenges. None of them come to mind right now.
And how about somebody in your life that you think has really made an impact that's really inspired you?
I guess I'd have to go back to my Uncle Salvu. Not only because of his garden, which really stands out in my memory, but he was just the most pleasant man. I love the way he treated Polina. He treated her like she was really, really special, and his family too. I've just always admired him.
That's neat. And what's one of the things that you like about Chelsea, about living in Chelsea the most?
Oh, there are so many things. I love the country roads. I don't like them so much in the winter when they're covered with ice, but I love the farms that are close by. I love going by. I'll never get used to that. Going by where there's horses and cows and there's a sheep farm that we pass. Almost anywhere we go through Lesser's farm. And both Mort and I love watching the corn grow, seeing how far along it's gotten. And of course, those two roads lead in just, 5-10 minutes to your house and Debbie's house, which is also quite nice. Chelsea has just some wonderful, wonderful gems. The Purple Rose comes to mind. The Chelsea Chamber Players, aren't we lucky to have them? We have a wonderful library. It's just such a nice community. I can remember when Dad and I would visit, before we moved out here, we would visit with you and Debbie, and even just walking downtown. And I just loved it because there were always, oh, hi, Mary, hi, different people that you knew by name. And now I have that
Right.
and enjoy that so much. Oh, there are other things about Chelsea. The Adult Learning Institute, that's fantastic that we have that. Your dad and I take lots of classes with them. The Chelsea Senior Center, where would we be without that? They're just just a wonderful group of people. I could just go on and on about Chelsea. I love it. I just love it. I even love the train whistles that you hear. And I don't even mind being stopped by the train occasionally. Yeah, it's a great place to live. I am so glad that you and Debbie settled here. And then, of course, Debbie promised me when we moved here free eggs for the rest of my life. So, I mean, that's a biggie right there.
That's a biggie, too.
Yes.
Not everybody in Chelsea gets that, but you do.
That's
Right?
true. That's true.
Well, I got to hear some new stories today, which is always fun. Some I've heard before, but some of them were completely new to me, Mom. So I appreciate that. Happy Mother's Day. I love you, and I'll see you around town.
Thank you, Linda, and happy Mother's Day to you, and I certainly love you.